G'day, dear listeners. You are listening to Truth to You. That's truth2you.org. Truth the number 2 letter u.org with Jono and Jason. G'day, mate.
G'day. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. This is our weekly roundup of stuff.
No, it's a weekly flat up.
Yeah, that's right. Today it is. Why don't we go with that first?
I like
Why
that.
Don't we talk
Jono
about
and Jason's weekly flat up. No, I've got some things to
Flat
go
up.
before then. But you
Okay.
said you had a surprise thing that we haven't spoken about. Hit me with it.
Yeah,
Let's start with that.
Like, so we
Because you sound like you've got a bee in your bonnet.
No.
No? It's not that? What is it? This is not one of your pet peeves. What is it then?
Oh, well, it is, but we've never really peeled the lid off. So we often talk about the lost tribes and how people talk about lost tribes.
Yeah.
And how they wish they were lost tribes. But a friend on Facebook last week, he put up a kind of thing. He got back from his DNA, sent some spit off in a little bottle, and they told him what his DNA was, and he was kind of disappointed to find he didn't have any Jewish heritage. And then a couple of people started to comment that maybe he did, and maybe that Irish English heritage meant that he was actually one of the lost tribes. And I thought it'd be worth talking just for a few minutes.
Let's do that because that is one of my. Yeah, okay. So you and I have done this actually. So we've done the DNA test. I'm really. I recommend everybody do it. Not just to see whether or not you've got Jewish ancestry or not, but just to see what your ancestry is. The more information you can get about yourself and where you've come from, the more it instills a sense of identity in you, and that's a good thing. And one thing that I often encounter, and I think you do too, is some sort of identity inadequacy that people seem to experience, especially coming from the Christian faith, that says if you don't have some sort of Jewish genealogy or Jewish DNA, then you're second rate. Then you're not pure. You're not one of the chosen one, whatever it might be, and they kind of feel left out. It's not the case, and it shouldn't be the case. And what I do find, and obviously what you find quite often, is that people gravitate to this idea of the 10-tribe mystery, if you like. That is the northern tribes that were exiled, and they, for the most part, assimilated into surrounding countries, and a lot of them just sort of lost their identity. This gives license to those who haven't really kept up with the latest DNA analysis, particularly 2013 and on, saying that, God has revealed to me, this is a private revelation thing that I often, I saw a shooting star, or God has revealed to me that I am one of the lost tribes. But what they don't have is a genealogy or a concrete DNA analysis that says, yes, you definitely have a Jewish heritage. If you don't, it's okay. You don't have to. Jason.
Okay, so one of the things that I worked in retail for a long time, and one of the sayings in retail is you're only really as good as your last good idea, meaning that you can have an amazing year, but if you put one foot wrong and it loses a sale somehow, then you're tainted. And that's kind of what your own personal study can be sometimes, like on the net. If you haven't looked at a subject matter before and then someone offers you an idea, you immediately jump on it and think that because this person's put the work in, obviously it's true. Something we spoke about last week. And it's absolutely right with this. British Israelism, really. That's what it is. I mean, it's people don't like that term anymore. It's politically not very nice. But I specifically saw somebody post up, but isn't Britain, Brit-An, the people of the Briss? Isn't that where they get the name from?
And isn't the Danish people from Dan? And the list goes on and on.
Yeah, and surely the Hebrides in Scotland are named after the Hebrews. I mean, it says Hebrew-Dese. How more obvious can it be?
That's what it says.
And no one ever thinks, so when the Northern Kingdom dispersed, they took with them a perfect 20,000. What are we going to go with this? When was this made up? About 1850s, 1860s?
Maybe.
So they took a perfect 19th century view of English with them, and then preloaded all these place names. So we'd understand in 1950 and 1960, when the first books were properly written about it, what it meant when someone saw Britain. They didn't think, oh, I wonder where Britain comes from as a word. They instantly thought, well, that can only mean one thing. It can only mean Brit, because that's how we pronounce Briss. I mean, it's not Brissan. And Hebrides can only mean Hebrewdes. What else could it mean? No one sits down and says, I wonder what the Gaelic is for this. I wonder what the Celtic is for this. I wonder what people lived there. And it's frustrating because what it kind of does, it takes very intelligent people and instantly gives them a way of being really, well, ignorance the only right word. Someone who doesn't actually have the knowledge. It's not like ignorance doesn't mean stupid. It means lazy, to be fair. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that and about just especially Britain on its own, just so people know it doesn't mean the people of the Covenant, which is what the obvious. And,
are you going to give us a history lesson in Britannia?
A tiny bit.
Oh, I'd like to hear a little bit of that. Now, just before we do continue, we should say, I think I speak for you, but correct me if I'm wrong. We're not saying that we don't believe that there were, 10 tribes that were exiled, that there were a large portion of Israel as a whole that disappeared into the nations, that there are prophecies that God will reunite all of Israel back in the land, that those prophecies exist in the Tanakh. Are you with me there?
Totally. Everything that the Tanakh writes, I take as truth.
Okay.
But what it doesn't mean is that they. You have to consider it, right? You've got a group of people who are assimilated into other cultures, and that means that they're not probably talking to each other in any way anymore. So at what point did they decide, oh, you're Dan, so you can't come with me over here. You have to go up to Denmark. And you're Menashe, so you can't come with us this way at all. You have to try and get to America. That's where your special place is. And then they all very neatly went off and then managed to populate what previously unpopulated. I mean, it's not even the point because we know historically and scientifically, we know it's not true. Just even recently, there were DNA tests done on the first people of Canada and the first people of America to try and find out. And a lot of the Lost Tribe guys who pushed that, Yadavidi and his ilk, they were waiting. They were very excited, and they knew that this was going to be something that would come back in their favor, and it just wasn't. And interestingly, they didn't come back as Viking, and they didn't come back as Celts. They came back as Siberian. And when you then take an ethnicity of kind of northern Russia and look at an ethnicity of, say, Alaska, you can see a similar, when you think of Attila and you think of Mongols, and then you think of maybe them in a Arctic setting, that kind of face, that kind of person isn't unusual. You can see how that might have got there. And so there's a direct link. They've proved it. There's no kind of Asian, Middle Asia, even Egyptian a link to them at all. So that's not what happened. They're totally Siberia, probably across a frozen plain of ice back in the day. And then they got to America and they found their lovely fields of green.
There you go.
And so when you look at something like the UK and Great Britain, it's very compelling and I know that I found it hypnotizingly beautiful as an idea years ago when I first came across books on this. And I thought that would be lovely because you're right. You're in the living room of the house party and all your church is saying, you're the new Israel. You're very special. Jesus is talking to you. And so when you read the Old Testament, that means God is talking to you. And then you start to think, well, maybe Jesus isn't what I'm into. And so all that placement you've put yourself in, that particular container, doesn't mean anything anymore. So unless you're Jewish,
there's a vacuum. That's it. That's right. Unless you absolutely know, then there's a vacuum. And what happens is you, as some have put it before, you shake the family tree until a Jew falls out. And if one doesn't, what the next step is to go and get the DNA test and then hope that you get something concrete by which you can say, well, obviously somewhere back in my lineage, there's back my ancestors, there's a Jew. Now, if that can be conclusively proven, that's wonderful for you if that's what you're searching for. There's nothing to feel second-rate about if you don't find something like that, and if you don't find a Jew in your family tree, absolutely not. And but look, before I knew about my family tree and before I did my DNA test, I felt that vacuum, and I know what that feels like. And I also found the whole lost tribe thing appealing, and I did buy into that for a little while. But yeah, you're right. I bought into it in ignorance, and the more I studied up on it, the more I came to the conclusion, quite frankly, that if you don't have a genealogy, if you don't have conclusive DNA, you really have nothing but what you claim to be a personal revelation, which means nothing to anybody else but between you and God, and that's fine.
That's absolutely true. And I did mine. I found that I've got like I think it was like 23% of my background came from they said Semitic stock, but out of like Holland, which makes perfect sense because 6,000 years ago, you could walk from East Anglia to Holland and the Netherlands, and so it makes sense that would be where part of my family is from. And because Europe pushed the Jews up and out towards that area, that makes sense that there'd be bloodline there. But that doesn't give me any inherent. My DNA doesn't give me any inherent place or love or value within God's creation. How I treat him is how I get merits for that and other people. So I just wanted to run, and it really won't take long. But if you're at home and you're thinking, no, Britain is people of the Briss, then great. But it used to be called Britannia. And as soon as you go back, as soon as you go to a point prior to Britain, and there would have been a time a few hundred years ago where no one would have known what you were talking about if you said Britain. If you didn't say the Ania at the end, they'd have been very confused. And then you have to start looking at a way of making that into a Hebrew word that works. And it's Britannic. And then you've got Brittany in southern France. So if Britain is the people of the Brest and it's specific to that country, and France is a different tribe, what happens with something like Brittany? And Brittany comes from a generic Greek word. The people that lived in Brittany used to be Britons, just like the people that lived in Britain. And in fact, if you go to France or Germany or Spain, they'll have a different word for Britain altogether. I mean, the reason it's England is because the Germans called them the England, the long straight country. And so England comes from German sources, not from English language. And there's just a big mess up. I wanted people to know that they should go and study it out a bit. When you look at Scotland and you look at the Hebrides in particular, or Ireland, I mean, there's this crazy story that the Ark of the Covenant can't be found because it's hidden under a hill in Tara near Galway.
Cool.
It's beautiful as an idea. You've got this big stone that's there. It's a standing stone. And the story goes that the Israelites carried this golden box. Now, I want you to think about this for a second because it's a great story. They carried the golden box all the way from Israel to save it, and they went as far as they could go, and they got to Ireland, and then they got as far in Ireland as they could go, and they got to Tara, and they dug a big hole, and they stuck this golden box down it, and it was the covenant box, the promise box, and then they put this big stone on top, the stone of destiny, because one day Israel would rise up, and they take
the stone of destiny.
Yeah, now you're thinking the stone is scone. So the one that they use,
the stone of destiny is it's kind of like the cross between the stone of scone. Is it the stone of scone or the stone of scone?
The stone of scone. I say scone because I'm English. I can't help myself.
Okay, I'm going to say stone of scone, the stone of destiny. Now, is the stone of destiny the one that you sort of hang over and kiss? Is it that one?
That's the Blarney stone.
Okay. What's that one again?
So the Blarney stone is part of a window in a castle, and you lay on your back and you shuffle out. There's this huge drop, and you kiss it. And it's supposed to give you the gift of the Blarney, so you can talk and talk and talk and talk. But it'll also give you STDs. And
yes,
crabs.
That's right. That's what I call it. The stone of herpes. Well, actually, there's a couple of those. There's one in Jerusalem in the what is it, Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, I pray that people take a handy wipe. Yeah, just wipe it down.
No, they don't care. Everyone, they all get in there and they lick it and they kiss it and they do. I've been there. I've got photos. I think I've got footage. It's amazing. It's memorizing. Nasty. There's like a bunch of slugs all over this stone.
So what you end up with is the concept of, what's the first concept of a promise we see in the Bible?
Where are we now? What?
If in the beginning of time, God makes a promise to Noah, and how does he show people what that promise is?
Oh, the rainbow. Right. Yeah.
Right. And what's at the end of a rainbow in Ireland?
Pot of gold.
Right.
And a leprechaun going, you can't have this, it's mine.
You've got little people coming across the country in
Dressed in green.
Odd clothes, carrying a golden box that represents God's promise. Yeah. And you end up with the Stone of Destiny on the Hill of Tyre and a load of people on 1900 on Christmas Day going out there with shovels to prove that they're right.
That's great. So are you telling me that there's actually... So the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow comes from this story?
It's one of the possible reasons for the
Never
story.
thought about it ever in my life, but that's really interesting. Now, while we're on it, have you ever seen a leprechaun?
I haven't seen one.
Oh, there's more to that story, obviously.
Well, you'd be walking down the road, you feel something like knocking your leg. You don't know what it is. Could be a leprechaun, who knows?
What? You're walking down the road and you feel something knocking your leg?
Yeah, you get a little something stabs you in the leg, and you look around. You think I must have put more past a rose bush or something, and you get a little someone's pricked your leg or something, or you just pull the hair out or something weird, and you don't know what it is. Could be a leprechaun.
Is that what they do when they're bored?
They do all kinds of weird stuff. Well, what you've got to remember, and I saw this the other day as well online. People talk about paganism and Christianity like it's the same thing. It really, pagan just means something other than what you currently believe in. Really, something older. But in Ireland, especially, when they talk about Halloween, it's got nothing to do with the church. And when they talk about banshees and leprechauns and little people, this stuff is thousands and thousands of years old. And although most people don't give it, it's just something to do with the heritage now, there are people that live up in the north, and they'll still, if they hear something screaming late at night and they don't know what it is, they might think it's banshee. Right, for real.
Totally, yep.
Or real.
Yep.
And in that way, it's harmless. It's just, for them, that's how they roll.
Is it? I don't think a banshee's harmless.
Well, it doesn't do anything. It just tells you something's going to happen.
Now, while we're on leprechauns and banshees, was there any werewolf action? I don't think there was. There wasn't any werewolf action in the last.
I Google searched it. Nothing came up. I was very disappointed.
But you looked out the window. You did a bit of.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because you got a bit of a view there.
We do, and nothing out of the ordinary.
All right, nothing there. All right, so moving on. Can we jump off this topic onto something else?
Yeah, sure.
You also floated another article, and that was in beliefnet.com. Beliefnet.com. 5 books that are not included in the Bible, and one of them, this is by Stephanie Herzenberg, and I found this kind of interesting. The infancy gospel. Fill us in.
So, we know that the Bible was put together, and what's interesting for me about this article, and maybe we'll share it afterwards, is that it's on Belief.net. It's kind of a Christian site, but they basically talk very honestly and openly about the formation of the New Testament and how it was put together by Romans in 325, 350, and it's a decent article, and lots of stories didn't get in because they either thought they were too wacky or too odd. And one of the things that they didn't put in is the infancy gospel, which is what happened between the birth of Jesus and him getting lost in the city one day. It's kind of all Jesus running around in the streets stuff.
Jesus, I would love this book. I reckon this would be absolutely fascinating because, it makes you wonder, really, what did he get up to? What was he like at school? Was he the kind of kid that would sort of hide behind the toilets during lunch and turn tobacco into marijuana or turn water into wine? Maybe he had a bit of a reputation. That's why Mary said to him at the wedding, "Hey, do your thing. You can do it now. You're over 18. Go ahead." Or 21, as it is in the States. Yeah. It would have been a really popular kid, or maybe not.
I think one of the stories in it was he kills, or a bird dies, or he kills a bird and then brings that bird back to life.
I've seen that magic trick.
Yeah, you do it with flies. You can put a fly in the freezer. I'm not advocating this. Yeah. And if you take it out and hold it, it will come back to life. But all these are available online.
Have you actually done that?
No, I haven't. I don't dig insects at all. Anything with more than 4 legs is not my bag.
Look, this is really interesting because it just so happened that a couple of days ago, if not yesterday, when was it? Was it yesterday? Anyway, whatever. We were we're driving along in the car, and William, who's my son's turning 13, and he said, is there in the New Testament, does he have a bar mitzvah? And we thought, no, I don't know if there was bar mitzvahs back then. I don't know that he did, and Hani said, "Oh, well, no, there's this story about when he was 12." I said, "That's right. Was he 12? Yeah, he was 12." So she looked it up. Now, it's a funny story, and this is the only story that we have. I'm pretty sure this is Luke chapter 2, verses 43 and 41 and on. Can I read it?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Can I read it in the voice?
Yeah, you have to do the voice.
Okay, ready? His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast. When the boy had finished the days, as they returned, the boy, and by the way, this is really interesting, the boy is capitalized. Interesting. Anyway, the boy, Jesus, lingered behind in Jerusalem, little bugger, and Joseph and his mother did not know it, bad parenting, but supposing him to have been in the company, they went a day's journey, now get this, they went a day's journey, and sought him among their relatives and acquaintances. Hello, Jesus. Do you know where Jesus is? Does anybody know where Jesus is? Has anyone seen Jesus? Oh my goodness, turn the donkey around. So they went... And when they did not find him, they returned to... No, so they went a day's journey, right? That means that it would have taken another day to go back. So they turned the donkey around. They went back to Jerusalem. Yeah. There's 2 days, right? Now it says in verse 46, now when it was that after 3 days... Now what I want to know is it like 3 days, is that from when they left... Or is that after they got back? So 2 days have already passed. They've gone a day away. They've gone, forgot Jesus, sort of home alone scenario. Turn the donkey around, come all the way back. There's day 2. And then after 3 days of looking in the old city, Jesus, anyone seen Jesus? Anyone, little kid that turns water into wine? Anyone seen him? After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. So, when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously. And he said to them, why did you, because his voice hasn't broken yet, why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my father's business? But they did not understand the statement which he spoke to them. First of all, they didn't understand the statement, but it kind of negates, the first, couple of chapters of Luke, doesn't it? With the whole visions of Mary, you're going to have a baby and it's not Joseph's, but it's of God. Joseph, his little dream about how you shouldn't put away Mary, your wife, but that it's of God. And then Jesus says to them, hey, it's just about my father. They go, what? What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that. That's really weird. But the other thing that occurs to me is that there he is teaching everybody in the temple, job done. Everyone's astonished and amazed that then surely they should have, if the story of Jesus is correct, everyone should have gone, we've been doing this all wrong. Let's just fix this now. This kid's got it under control. This kid's just solved the Rubik's Cube. This is awesome. Let's just change a few things. Thanks, kid. On your horse, on your donkey. And we'll just sort it out from here. Nice one, because they were all amazed and astonished, and we don't need the rest of the book. We don't need any of it, actually. But apparently that's not what happened. The other thing is... In fact,
surely this is what Isaiah 53 was talking about.
That's what they should have said, and there's no need to, in 30 years just go and get hammered to a cross. No, we don't need that. We'll just sort it out right now. Thanks very much for coming down and sorting this out. It's great. Great stuff. 3 days that you crapped on. 3 days. We couldn't get it right then. What the hell? Seriously. And the other thing is how does Joseph and Mary just set off and not check to see if the Son of God is with them? I don't understand that. Isn't that the most important thing? Let's just make sure we've got Jesus, had that dream. Remember you had the dream? Remember you fell pregnant and I didn't, and now let's get that kid because that's the most important one. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, if you got the gold pieces, yeah. Water, yeah. Donkey, yeah. Son of God. Oh, I knew there was something.
That's the only information that we have on the infancy of Jesus, but lo and behold, been kept from us all this time, the infancy gospel. I would love to get a hold of this and have a good read.
Well, I'll send you a link because it's all online on
Is it?
Gnostics.org. Yeah. Let me read to you one tiny bit.
Go on.
Now, when he was 6 years old, his mother sendeth him to draw water and bear it into the house. And he gave him a pitcher. And in the press, he struck it against another, and the pitcher was broken. But Jesus spread out the garment which was upon him, and filled it with water, and brought it to his mother. And when his mother saw what was done, she kissed him, and she kept within herself the mysteries which she saw him do. Now, I want to say that In the passage before this,
Yeah.
there's a guy who drops an axe on his foot and is on the point of death, and Jesus saves his life. On the one before that, a young child falls down and dies, and he brings the boy back to life. On the one after that, he plants 1 grain of seed, and when he reaps it, he brings back 100 measures of corn.
Oh, that's cool.
And it goes on and on and on.
Yep, I want to read
But
this.
in
It's
this,
great.
Jesus goes to a fountain, and it's so busy that he cracks the pot against another pot, and he thinks to himself, this one that can bring people back to life, do anything he wants, the answer to this problem isn't for me to get a new pot or even just to fill the pot with water while I'm at home. It's to take off my clothes and make them into some big water hammock and then struggle with that to get...
That's great.
It's just odd.
Send me a link. No, we'll put the link. We'll put it online with this post. But apparently, it dates back to the 2nd century. So the question must be asked: why is it not in the jigsaw puzzle that is the New Testament? I reckon this would have gone down really well. The reason apparently is because it was written by Gnostic Christians. But if Gnostic Christians came before, if they came before, well. Isn't that more genuine? Anyway.
That's part of the problem is that this is traditionally said to be written by Thomas, and I think there's a few Gospels of Thomas, and there's a Gospel of Peter, the one where the cross comes dancing out.
And the talking cross.
Right. So what you have to remember is that 200 years after he was supposed to have been born, there's this new church that's being lightly formed, and they already have things in them that the later Roman church don't want, because the people that they're trying to sell this Messiah to have an idea about what the Messiah already has to be. So as an example, no one ever asks when they read about Nicodemus why Jesus was speaking to him in Greek. But that story about being born again is a play on words that can only work in Greek. So then you have to figure out, why did Jesus climb up a tree, smuggle himself in to see this dude who would have natively done Aramaic, possibly chosen to speak to a stranger in Hebrew, but Aramaic would have been the custom. And then Jesus and him both speak in Greek. Now, there's an interesting thing in here where it says, but when Joseph saw the understanding of the child at his age, and that it was coming to the full, he thought to himself, he shouldn't be ignorant of letters, so he wants to teach him to read. So he takes him to a teacher, and the teacher says to Joseph, first I will teach him the Greek letters, and after that the Hebrew. So you have to ask yourself again, why Joseph would take the boy to learn Greek and then Hebrew in a world then which Aramaic would have been the first most important language. As it happens, Jesus was smarter than him. The teacher was provoked and smote him on the head, and the young child was hurt and cursed the teacher.
Ooh.
And he fainted and fell to the ground on his face.
Oh, yeah.
And then the child returned home to Joseph, and Joseph was grieved and commanded his mother, saying, let him not go forth without the door, for all that they die will provoke him to wrath. So anyway, we'll put the link up. It's a good read. And there are dozens of these. It's important to remember that somebody chose what books you read in the New Testament.
Yep.
While we're on the New Testament very quickly, The Passion of the Christ, the film that came out 15 years ago.
No. I know. But before we jump onto that, because I don't want to jump on this, I'm still on Stephanie Herzenberg here with her article, because the next one on the list is the Gospel of Mary, and we can't let this go, particularly if we're going to talk about Catholic stuff. So let me just read this one, because I think this is great. Scholars do not always consider the Gospel of Mary to be a true, quote, gospel, because the text does not have the same focus on the teachings of the adult Jesus as the canonical, the synoptics. Okay, so there is also a great deal of debate among scholars as to which Mary the narrator is the narrator of the text referring to. Is it the Virgin Mary or is it Mary Magdalene? But neither theory can be confirmed due to the state of the original text. The text is missing a total of 10 pages, 6 at the beginning, 4 in the middle. The sections of the text that are intact depict a scene after the resurrection of Christ when Jesus appears to his disciples. Now, here it is. He gives Mary special or secret teachings through a vision. Mary shares these teachings. Again, here we are with another, private revelation. Mary shares these teachings with other disciples, but the other disciples are skeptical that Christ would trust such important, quote, teachings privately to a woman and not openly to the male apostles. Peter and Andrew particularly question Mary's truthfulness, while Levi defends her. It is likely that the same reason that the text was stricken from the canon, because you can't have a woman, with the magic knowledge. You can't have
isn't that bizarre? Because often I think there are between 3 and 5 different Marys in the text, and most Christians, if you ask them who Mary Magdalene was, will say she was a fallen woman, a harlot, because they don't look at the breaks between chapters. They don't see that the Mary mentioned as a fallen woman isn't the same as Mary of Magdala, who is a different person. She was probably a hairdresser. That's one of the ideas, that her name comes from what she did for a living. But what's interesting for me is that church that said you can't have this because it's going to push women to feel that they can become teachers and leaders and that they have some sort of special relationship with Jesus. They ignore all the parts in the Gospels when Jesus almost always speaks to women first. Whenever he goes to a new place, it's uncanny. He almost always goes to a woman first.
Yeah.
Bit of a woman at the well. There's a woman here. There's a woman here. It's always to a woman.
Speaking of women first, I can't jump over this either. This is just golden stuff. The next one on the list is the Acts of Paul. And how would I pronounce this? Thecla?
Yeah, that's good. If I try it, it will just sound worse.
Well, all I'm going to say is you wouldn't want to. I don't know if that's a name today, but I wouldn't want to go to school with that name, Thecla. No offense to any Theclas out there. I'm sure you're wonderful people. The Acts of Paul and Thecla, also called the Acts of Paul or the Acts of Thecla. It's beginning to be a bit of a tongue twister. Details the life and journeys of the young Christian convert Thecla. Thecla was a young virgin who was engaged to a wealthy and powerful man in the city of Iconium. When she heard Paul preaching about chastity, however, she refused to marry the man and was sentenced to be burned at the stake, because that's what you do. However, God intervened and saved Thecla's life. Thecla, because, sex is evil. You can't get married, and so on and so forth. So says Paul. Thecla joined Paul on his journey to Antioch, where she ran afoul of the magistrate in the city when she refused to sleep with him. The magistrate ordered Thecla to be killed several times, because it's not enough to be killed once.
No.
Go and take this woman and kill her several times. But each time she was saved by God. In one of her final trials, Thecla threw herself into a body of water of sharks. What? Okay, all I want to know is, why hasn't this been made into a movie? This is awesome stuff. She finally throws herself into a body of water filled with sharks. The sharks were killed by God, and Thecla then baptized herself. That's great. That's awesome. It is. I'm just reading it. It is theorized that the Acts of Paul and Thecla was kept out of the official canon because Thecla's actions were too powerful for a woman. She acted with all the power of a man, something unacceptable at the time. But it's not unacceptable now. I mean, right now we've got, Gal Gadot and Wonder Woman and all of this. And it's like, by all means, if there's never been a time such as now to turn this into a movie. The Thecla, I mean, jump into a Sharknado. Have you ever seen any of those films?
I haven't. It would be a guilty pleasure, but so far I haven't.
I think there's like 5 of them that have been made so far.
Yeah, the first one was so popular they couldn't help but.
If you can make 5 of those, surely you can make a movie out of Thecla jumping into a body of water filled with sharks.
What kind of group of people sit there and they read this document and they're like, okay, she was a young virgin engaged to a powerful man, heard Paul preaching about chastity, and then she didn't want to marry because then she'd have to have sex, so they tried to kill her. That's okay, yeah, okay. But God saved her. Yeah, okay. Then she joined Paul, lifelong devout
Antioch.
Bachelor, let's say, yeah. And they tried to kill her a few times. Yeah, I'm happy with that too. Saved by God. And then threw herself into a body of water that was handy because it was filled with sharks and that root of land. That obviously that's okay, so we click that too. But she was powerful though, so maybe we shouldn't put that in.
Yeah.
mean, she baptized herself. That's okay too.
That's okay
we're
too.
Doing that. Everyone's doing that.
But
these
she was
days.
a powerful woman, and we're not really into that, so we can't include that in the canon.
Yeah, we can't.
All right. Anyway, there's a few of these, but I think we have to move on. You mentioned, and this is the finally Christ is returning, isn't he? I mean, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. The blood moon, full moon, blue moon, supermoon didn't happen. But it is booked to happen. Thanks to that great theologian, Mel Gibson. Tell us about it.
Mel the Man Gibson. So 15 years ago, he introduced us to a film which amazingly did really well in the box office, about a man that's beaten and tortured to death.
It was one of the most gory films I've ever seen, to be honest. It was gruesomely... If you put that into a different movie, it would have been an 18 certificate. It's unusual, I don't know how they got around that. But spoiler alert, he lives at the end, and there's going to be a new one. This time it's personal. That's what I wanted to say at the bottom. But what I don't understand is who's gonna give this. No Christian's gonna give this a positive review, because whatever tomb story he tells, it's gonna exclude 3 of the other ones. Right? It's really
who turns up?
Doesn't seem to.
Is it Mary and someone else?
That's
a whole handful of people.
It's going to be interesting. So, I mean, Mel doesn't care. I mean, honestly, I think maybe there was about 10% of the text in the last movie of the New Testament and Passion of the Christ. But but you're right. It will be interesting to see where he cherry picks from. Will it be from one of the synoptics? Will he run with John? We don't know. It's going to be interesting. Really, it's primarily, I suppose, a lot of it's going to be Acts, the early chapters of Acts, and all that sort of stuff.
And then is it going to be, don't touch me, I haven't got my final form yet, so I'm actually a spirit?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be, man, I'm hungry, do you have any fish going? Stick your finger in this hole, or don't come near me at all. I'm hidden as a gardener. No, I'm not. I'm glowing in front of you. I mean, I imagine the action figure line for this, the 6.5-inch playable dolls. They're going to be able to get Gardener Jesus and Floating in Space Jesus. It's going to be awesome. The merchandise.
Now, the original came out in 2004. We're now in 2000. There's 14 years since Jimmy Boy played Jesus, and so he's aged 14 years. I don't know how they're going to deal with that, because Jesus is supposed to come back with zombie body, right? Because he says to Thomas, stick your finger in my hand here and in my side. Put your hand in my side. I'm still a zombie. I'm really gross, but I'm back. So that's what's going to happen. When is this going to be released?
We don't know. He said yes. Jim said yes, and Mel is obviously saying yes. I mean, this is like a golden goose for him.
I don't think this one can be. I don't think this one can be as morbidly revolting as the last one. I don't think there's enough gore to play with. But you never know. I mean, you never know what Mel can do with it.
I mean, he might start off with a flashback. He's on the cross, because he didn't really go through the zombie apocalypse part of that, where all of the people come out of their graves. He didn't do that, so that's not.
Didn't do the guts gushing part of Thomas, not Thomas of
Judas.
Judas. Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that he missed out on, opportunity missed. And who knows? Maybe they'll revisit some of those in memories. There you go, Mel. There's an idea. Just if you want to sort of get the gore back into, I mean, because you're clearly a bit of a fan. You can
Maybe
do a bit of flashbacks.
He'll surprise everyone, and he'll reveal that Thomas was actually a lookalike for Jesus, and that's why they called him Didymus, and that's why they were never seen together in the same room.
I don't know. Mel is a very dedicated Catholic, is my understanding. Yeah,
and full on.
Yeah, and so I don't think he's going to step out of line too much.
Well, when he's not drinking, taking drugs, and having sex with prostitutes, he is the most Catholic person you're going to find.
And blaming a particular ethnicity for all these woes in the world. Right. So, speaking of Catholics, now this is an interesting thing that's happened here in Australia. Now, have you ever noticed, so you haven't seen any leprechauns, but have you ever noticed any, I mean, there you are in Ireland. I imagine in my head, when I think of Ireland, there's nuns and priests everywhere. Is that what it's like?
Without sounding condescending, there are definitely lots of places where there are nuns and priests everywhere, but Dublin isn't one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
So there's no leprechauns, there's no nuns. Because like, have you ever noticed, when you look out your window, is there like a priest kind of suspiciously staring up at you, or is there a nun in a window opposite you, kind of, with binoculars?
Okay, so if I'm walking up to the store,
yeah.
It wouldn't be unusual to see a nun go past on a bike.
Yeah,
and
take a photo.
If there's a headwind and she's in a habit, it's something you don't want to think about.
Right.
But I will see a little grottos or figures of Mary in windows.
Yeah.
And
little,
they're all over the place.
So you don't feel spied on. You don't feel like you're being watched by the the religious authorities.
Not where I live at the moment now. I think they get enough of a hint.
Okay, all right. Well, the reason why I ask is because, and this was in the Australian, so spy law sparks Catholic Church concerns. So it starts off, and this is by Primrose Riordan. Primrose Riordan. That's a nice name. Interesting.
Oh, Riordan. Is it RIO?
Yeah.
Yes, Riordan.
Oh, okay, nice one. Catholic bishops have warned the Turnbull government, so Malcolm Turnbull is our Prime Minister, the Turnbull government, that new treason laws aimed at exposing spies could force priests and nuns to register as foreign agents of the Pope or Vatican officials. Now, that got me thinking, and I do recall I've actually been to the Holy See. I've been to the Vatican. And I do recall my tour guide telling me, the Vatican is its own country. And so I did a bit of a quick checkup on Google here, and lo and behold, they're quoting from history.com, Vatican City is the smallest country in the world, encircled by a 2-mile border with Italy. Vatican City is an independent city-state that covers just over 100 acres, making it 1/8 of the size of New York's Central Park. Vatican City is governed as an absolute monarchy with the Pope as its head. So it kind of makes sense then that if bishops and cardinals are appointed, and therefore all authority with the priests and nuns and so on and so forth are appointed from the Vatican, then are they not agents of the state? Are they not agents of that country?
Ooh. Yeah, no, that does make perfect sense.
Doesn't it?
Are you under the employ of as an agent? I mean, if you're born in Ireland and you're appointed, priest, you're like a diplomat, or
well, you must be. This is, I mean, that kind of makes sense. This is why all the the Catholic priests can Roger little boys and then bugger off to Italy and go on too sick to get on a plane.
Yeah, that's right. So all that Dan Brown stuff might be true.
What do you reckon? Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Just saying. It's a legitimate thing. It's in the Australian. That's a legitimate paper. This is a real concern that they're having, that they might have to register as, according to this new law that may be imposed, spies. Suspicious of them, yeah.
Now, so you're in Australia. I'm in Ireland. Obviously, if you saw the supermoon last week, I must have seen the supermoon at exactly the same time as we were on a perfectly flat plane, and we can both look up at the sky at the same time.
Not so fast.
Right.
No. Speaking of conspiracy theories, okay, this is in the Metro. I don't even know it. The metro.co.uk. There you are in the UK. Is that what's the Metro?
Metro is like a free paper that gets given out to people at train stations and stuff.
It's free.
It's a big one.
Okay. Okay. Flat Earthers reveals the real reason NASA is lying to us that Earth is round. Now, I've always wondered about this. Why would they be? Who cares? I mean, why? Okay, so Flat Earthers say, oh, no, it's a big conspiracy. NASA's lying to you. All the pilots are in on it, all the astronauts, the space station, everyone, all of these people that have been, they all know that it's flat, and they're just telling you that it's round. And I think to myself, but why? What purpose does it serve? Well, according to this article, the purpose is to hide God. And the reason why, according to this article, that it is to hide God is because the adherents of flat earth theology, if you like, or the conspiracy, depending on which side of the fence you're standing on, the adherents interpret certain passages of the Bible and the New Testament to infer that the earth is flat and therefore it must be flat because that's the way they interpret those verses. Anything else is false. Therefore, NASA is anti-God and trying to hide God from the population of the Earth. Your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to say anything positive about this straight away. I read that article, and it was kind of funny because there's a cricketer called Freddie Flintoff, and he was a big deal back in the day, and he's been listening to a lot of these flat earthers, and he said, if you're in a helicopter and you hover, why does not the Earth come to you if it is round? If you're in a helicopter and you hover, why does the Earth not come to you if it's round? I don't even know why that is a thing.
Yeah, why is that a thing? I don't even. I did read that, and I'm thinking, but what does that mean? I don't even understand what you mean by that. I mean, surely if it was, I mean, we're talking about the difference between concave and convex. I think he's confused.
Yeah, and then why, if we're hurtling through space, would water stay still? Why is it not wobbling? And if you fire a laser about 16 miles, if the Earth was curved, you shouldn't be able to see it, but you can. So what he's saying is that if the Earth has a natural curvature, then the laser maybe would fire off and you can't see it. I don't get that. The water one's easy. That's like saying if you put a bull in the back of a car and drive 80 miles an hour, why didn't the bull try and go out the back window? That's what he's asking. Because he doesn't. This is another example of someone that's been told something. Yeah. So they've been told something and then they haven't done any study.
They haven't done any study. And now,
or looked out a window.
Now, someone has come to the rescue to and I really like this actually. What's his name? Mad Mike, and this is in the Sun. Flat Chance, it's called. How one mad limo driver will strap himself to a homemade rocket, to prove the Earth is flat. Now, I admire this guy. So he believes that the Earth is flat. He's going to prove it by strapping himself to a homemade rocket, sending himself up into space so that he can see for himself. Now, you know how this is going to work out. If he comes down and he says, oh, it was round, they're going to go, you're being paid by NASA. If he comes down and he says it's flat, all the flat earthers are going to say, awesome, we knew that. That's great. Good money well spent. So this guy for the last few years has been building a rocket in his backyard, and it's like, and he's.
Oh no! You said rocket. It actually should say coffin.
Yeah, well, no, he's done it once before. And he shot himself up into the sky. I think what was it, about 1,500 feet. He sort of crash landed and had to walk with a frame for a few weeks. But he thought, can do that better. And good on him. I mean, I hope he succeeds. I think he went 1,300 feet. Now, but the thing is, right, from this article, from what I can understand, he expects to be flung into the sky, propel himself 3,000 feet up in the air over Amboy, a deserted town in California. This is where he's doing it. Now, he's absolutely doing it. I think this is going to take place. Look, his newest rocket is set to take off on the 3rd of February. Well, apparently it's already happened. Have we seen?
Right, so he was supposed to do this a couple of weeks ago or a month ago.
Yeah.
And backed out because the local government wouldn't let him do it. Then someone came forward and said, I've got private land. You can do it on this. And I think that's what this one is meant to be. Now, I am willing to bet, we haven't looked this up, this isn't staged, that for some reason he cancelled.
I reckon. Well, so let's quickly have a look now. Rocket, flat Earth. Let's see. Okay. First thing that comes up. No. That's old. No, we're going to have to go to news and tools. Recent. Let's say the past week. I'm going to go with past week.
Yeah, past week. Should do it.
Here's the 2nd of February. This is the latest one. It says a previous attempt was stopped by the federal government. Okay, so Amanda believes that the Earth is flat, is planning on launching. Okay, so he hasn't done it. This was on the 2nd. There's nothing that I can see on Google anyway to say that he has done it. Perhaps we can report back on this next week. But I admire because I mean, if you want, and we always say this, both you and I, if you really, I mean, if you hear something. You really want to own that information. You've really got to investigate it for yourself, and then you'll know for sure. Now, the problem is, though, Jason, is that according to this article, he's throwing himself up into the sky 3,000 feet. What's that going to achieve? I mean, it's costing him thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, where you can just get an aeroplane from X to Y, and your basic 747 is going to fly at 34, 35, maybe even 39,000 feet.
But they put special windows on airplanes that give the horizon a convex view.
Is that why? Is that seriously why?
Yeah,
because you can't
trust.
One of the
reasons.
You can't trust the planes.
What he could do is get a regular phone and strap it to a hot air balloon, put a GPS thing on it so we can find it, and just let it go. Let it go. It will go all the way up to the atmosphere, it'll pop, and then he can go and find it again. Oh, that says here, especially when he could just strap a GoPro to a balloon. People have done it. But what he doesn't, what he could do is ring someone up in a different country and ask him if it's daytime.
Yeah.
He could do that. I mean, why would it be nighttime? I mean, right here, right? It's 10:38 a.m. in the morning. The sun came up maybe 2 hours ago, and for you, it's nighttime.
It's nighttime. Totally dark outside.
Right. And what's important is that not only is it nighttime for you and you can see the stars, but they're different stars to the ones
they are.
You can see.
This is what. Okay, so on the last Tanakh tour, by the way, we're doing it again this November, and Rabbi Toby, Singh, and myself, and Ross Nichols this November. So we would love you to join us. You can get the details at truth2u.org, truth2u.org. Now, when we were there, it was beautiful. We were looking out over the Kotel on a Friday night, Shabbat evening, and the moon was just coming up over the Kotel wall, the western wall. It was absolutely gorgeous over the Temple Mount. And you can see it was a beautiful night, and you can see the stars up above. And I recognized some stars. And I said to everybody, if you turn your head like this to one side, that's what it looks like in Australia.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool. But
cool.
I recognized some stuff. But in any case, yeah, now look, I admire this guy. I hope he doesn't blow himself up.
Yeah, I hope he survives.
But I just don't think. I mean, I looked it up, and apparently you can kind of make out the curvature at 35,000 feet. But if you really want to, you need a fairly good view, like a wide view, and a fairly clear sky, not cloudy, because it kind of makes it hard. But at 60,000 feet, you're guaranteed to. I mean, there it is. It's curved, absolutely. But I mean, not everyone gets to experience that, right? That's
right. And lots of people that believe in this really haven't done any traveling. That's what kind of. And again, this is another example. If someone comes with something, and there's also an underlying sense of paranoia, where your life didn't go really the way you want it to go, maybe, or something else happened, so you want someone to blame, and the government must be in on it, and that's why NASA wants to keep with this information from you. But that doesn't stop the fact that if you go to your nearest ocean and watch a boat go away, the bottom disappears way before the top does.
But you know why?
It's not because it's sinking.
No, I'll tell you why. Because NASA sees that you're looking at that boat, and they think, quick, bomb that boat and sink it. That's why it looks like it is actually sinking, and it's because you're looking at it. So stop looking at boats, because it's not fair to everyone that's aboard. Now, there is actually a Flat Earth conference which is going on. It seems to be a yearly thing, and it attracts a lot of people. So says the ABC News.
It would be fun, wouldn't it? It would be so much fun.
It'd be interesting. Inside Flat Earth International Conference, where everyone believes Earth isn't round, and this is it's a thing. They have a conference, so that's nice for them. That's good. But I'd like to see them all get into rockets. Don't you think?
Yeah. If there's a GoFundMe for that page, I would help.
There probably is, and maybe we should contribute to it. They should do that. I'm all for it. Own it. Own the information for yourself. Absolutely, that's good. Now, I'll tell you what, though. What I found out yesterday. Through and this is a great site, curiosity.com. Get some really cool things there. And that is to say that a donut-shaped planet is technically possible. You like that one?
Yeah, and sci-fi has kind of been talking about this for a while. Not least because, one of the biggest issues with All right, if you're a flat earther, you just won't like any of this. But one of the biggest issues with space stations,
I think that's tuned out already, really, to be honest.
Yeah, you might be right. Space stations is gravity. How do you make gravity work? And one of the answers they think might be to have something that's cylindrical form that spins, and then centrifugal force forces you to the outside, and that allows you to stand up easier. And so because that works, and because of the spinning, gravity they think is caused. No one really. It's one of the interesting things when you get someone that says they're an atheist. I don't believe in anything I can't see, and then or I can't prove. And then you ask them if they believe in gravity. They'll all say yes, but you can't prove. All you can do is prove that something forces something down, but no one really knows what gravity is or why it works. It goes completely against the laws of nature. Normally, if something's spinning, the inertia forces out, not in.
There it is.
But with a donut-shaped planet, because it is smooth and spherical, it's conceivable that the gravity would work all the way around, inside and out.
It kicks off by saying, have you ever wondered why every planet we know about is shaped like a sphere? Why not a cube or an hourglass? While those, and let's be honest, it says, most other shapes would definitely break the laws of physics. There's one odd planet form that wouldn't, and that's a donut. And I'd love to live on a donut Earth. I reckon that'd be really cool. What'd be great about it is that you could take an aeroplane from one side of the donut to the other. There's a massive hole. Think about that.
Oh man, it'd be neat. It would be neat.
Yeah.
And imagine the sunsets you'd get on one side would look totally different to the same plane, but on the other side of the ring, because you'd have the distant planet, part of your planet, breaking the sun off first. Oh, that would be spectacular. And imagine a solar eclipse.
Yeah, that's it. There'd be a little hole in the middle.
Yeah, that'd be special.
So many upsides. I reckon we've run out of time. Was there anything else we wanted to throw into this? That's it?
No, not for this. That's it. We're done for this
Done.
week. Just want to thank you for everyone that listened last week and left comments.
Yeah.
When we do like a new project, we're never really sure how it's going to be taken, so it really helps us to get your feedback.
Yep.
Thank you for support on our own sites and all the other stuff we do. We really appreciate our listeners. So just thumbs up.
Hey, I did a little ad for the tour. Have you got an ad? Give us an ad. Because if we have advertising, it makes us seem like we're special and sort of financed.
If you would like ads run on these programs, let us know. There you go. There's an ad for an ad.
That's an ad for an ad.
If we can get sponsorship,
then
it would make
that's
all this
even
so
better.
much easier.
It's actual money.
Actually,
like that.
We could buy food.
That's it. All right. Listen,
real donut.
I've run out of I've drunk my glass of wine. I'm going to go get another one. And with that, we hope everyone has a great week, and we'll be back with another weekly flat up next week.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Arrivederci.
Why not? We all come from the tribes.
Yeah.
They must have used French.
Sayonara.
English. I only know bonsoir, so we just believe in that.
Okay.